All right, thank you, Mary Kate, for that great introduction. So today we're going to talk a lot more in detail about how to actually integrate paid search data with organic search data.
So we know Google is a critical traffic and revenue source. 91% of global traffic comes from Google, according to a Forbes advisor. There's also that many sites rely on Google traffic. As we can see here, paid search 27% and organic at 53%. So there's truly, Google is king, right? When it comes down to traffic and revenue for sites, there's no doubt about it. And both these channels drive some value and traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the picture says it all right there. Google is king.
Absolutely.
But I think what's really important to hear to say also is that while both channels do provide a lot of coverage, and it's really important to integrate the two, and we'll talk about the details, but over time you can see that most people really consider that SEO is far the more profitable channel. So that's something to pay closer attention to because we can actually have a lot more margin, reduce our costs with organic search. That's not to say that you shouldn't do paid search, but really focusing on maximizing your profitability with SEO.
Yeah, and I think both have a role, right? They both
Absolutely.
definitely have a purpose.
Yeah.
So what's changed in the SERPs? We know that have they become more crowded or have they become more competitive? Honestly, it's all the above. They have become more crowded. They have become more competitive. We've got a lot more SERP features as of recent. Now we've got AI overview. In the past, we had people also ask and answer box. So over time, the SERPs have really evolved to be quite crowded and, of course, quite competitive. So it's become a challenge, a big challenge for visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. While that is becoming challenging, and there's definitely no disputing that at all. But what's interesting to see is that while there's a lot more coverage for paid media in that, it's really interesting that there's a lot more growth in it. There's been actually a lot of increase in coverage for organic and different search results, things around expanded knowledge graphs, product reviews, free product inclusion, and things like that. So while it's changing, it is becoming way more competitive, but it's creating new opportunities to increase your footprint. So there is a lot of paid ads in prime real estate, absolutely, and there's increasing coverage for SEO too. But one thing what you do find over time, and I'm sure a lot of you throughout your organization feel the same, is that brands do tend to invest more in paid media versus organic search. While we all feel a lot of times that's unfortunate, the metrics are very clear. So from more of a budget approval standpoint, it's very easy to get paid search approval because it's very clear when you put in $1, you're going to get X amount of dollars back. But with organic, it can be a little difficult to show ROI and organic when you are optimizing the two channels. And we'll get into the specifics how to actually demonstrate some positive growth from both channels.
You know, what's interesting too about that, Richard, before we move on, is when we look at how the SERPs have evolved and how different SERP features have been added in, the size of which ads from Google Ads has increased as well, right? So back in the day, it used to be title was 25 characters and then description line 1 and 2 was 35. Now it's increased. It's even taking up more real estate. So now you're competing with that, right? So you've got SERP features on the organic side, and then you've got increased ad size, which definitely impacts that as well.
One thing that's interesting here is, and we'll talk about a kind of a pain point for organic search, is that with a really typical marketing budget from an organization, you'll see that about 50% of that budget goes towards paid media, while only 15% will go towards organic search. That does seem a little unfair. That's something that we've all been probably subject to for quite a while. But one thing that we can do to really get a bigger seat at the table is to really understand that SEO can be a better marketing channel for all throughout your organization. One, it's very strong as a standalone channel. We're all very familiar with our organic search metrics, and I'm sure we're all very proud of the work that we've achieved. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that SEO can also be a very strong assist mechanism. So a lot of the things that we do with content optimization, technical with page speed, schema, those things can contribute to a higher paid search quality score, thus helping increase the performance of organic search. So when we're doing this, not only are we demonstrating the work that we've done, and maybe we're finding some good synergies across the channel, but we're also helping the other channel achieve better performance. And that's something that all organizations should recognize. So us as channel ambassadors, we can definitely contribute to a much larger KPI growth throughout the organization.
Absolutely. And I think what's helpful is having that large data set from PPC and PLA campaigns and being able to share that is really a benefit. Let's get into some of the misconceptions. So I think a lot of people have misconceptions. Richard, I know over my career, I've heard them. I'm sure you've heard a ton of them as well.
Oh, yes.
Let's dive into some of those.
Okay, that sounds great. First one, and I'm sure all of you have heard this quite a bit, is that you can turn off your paid search ads if you have prime positioning in your organic campaigns. That's not something that we recommend at all, and we'll get into the data and you'll see why. But an interesting example, I had a client that turned off paid search for a week, and where we had top rankings just as a test, and I'm glad they did that. But what the outcome was is that site-wide traffic dropped by 65%. So you can see that the two channels really depend on each other. So looking at this is definitely a myth and really a misconception. So keeping the two on and really finding the synergies is really where you're going to get maximum performance. The next one too is you can't show ROI with SEO from the encrypted keyword data. While we can't see the performance per keyword like you can in paid search, there are ways to demonstrate the ROI, and we'll get into specifics on that, but really understanding the work that you've done, really from that showing the incremental growth that you brought to the organization by leveraging the two channels from an optimization and analyst perspective. Okay. So let's talk about a little more on the cost efficiency side.
So we know SEO is a more cost-effective channel, right? But we also know that PPC has a benefit as well. You're able to do a lot of control with paid search. Your targeting, your day parting, demographics, you can even control which networks you show on. So there are benefits to both and strong suits to both. I think if we look at it from PPC and paid search, that's more of a sprint, whereas SEO is more of a marathon.
And the last thing about that too is that the long-term benefits of this, particularly when you're launching big campaigns, all your paid media is going to have a big splash in the beginning. But the nice thing about the organic performance is that will perform for you over time, well over when your campaigns are really been and all your paid ads and everything have stopped. So SEO can be obviously a good catch-all in the beginning, but also a long-term position for you. And this really helps build trust with your organic results and all the things that we'll talk about. We talked earlier about new features for both paid and natural. That does help increase the customer's confidence in the brands that they're looking for. So let's talk about how we can be better together. So I'll turn this over to Chris here.
Yeah. So how do I use my paid search data to help, right? To impact SEO? There is a ton of ways, right? We have access to a lot of great data when it comes down to paid search. A few things we're able to do is identify what keywords are resonating well in their paid search ads. Those may be areas for the SEO team to leverage and to go ahead and build content and strategies around. There's also many ways that we can utilize the body copy of an ad and knowing what resonates well with click-through rates and things along those lines.
Yeah, and I think what's important is there are definitely a lot of takeaways. And when we get from a tactical standpoint, you're looking at really strong performing paid campaigns, particularly around the ad copy, things that are triggering a lot more clicks. Those are the things that we a lot of times can emulate in organic search to help level the click field on that. Okay, now let's talk about how we actually do an analysis like this. One, we do like to group the keywords into three primary buckets. First bucket is where we're getting traffic and performance from both channels. So where we're getting at least one click, but hopefully a lot more. And then the next one is where we're getting performance from SEO only. And then third is where we're getting performance from paid search only. We do like to evaluate this by different ranking groups. So I do like to look at this where we do have top 3 rankings, and then where you have your organic ads in the absolute top impressions. So essentially where we're juxtaposed most of the time. Okay? And then looking at this in each ranking group, because you'll see that if we look at top 3, Then look at this as our rankings drop, say from 4 to 10, and then as we would move a little bit further down from 11 to 20, and then so on. And over time, we'll see some of the results that performance does drop quite a bit when our rankings drop for both channels. Obviously, it's a no-brainer when our rankings drop for organic search that our organic performance is going to drop a little bit, but it's interesting the impact that it does have on paid search too. So.
Absolutely. And I think, Richard, this is great. A lot of times from the client success standpoint, we get questions of folks don't know where to start. So this is a great approach to making sense out of it and moving forward with how do we look at the data? What do we do with the data when we have the paid search data? SEOClarity does a fantastic job of bringing in your paid search data with organic, but once again, those questions come in as now that I have it, what do I do? And I think this is a great process.
Another thing too is that, I'm sure we all talk about schema all the time, is that wherever you can, where it makes technical sense, apply schema to maximize your rich snippet coverage. Because I'm sure we all recognize that the visuals in paid media do look very attractive, and it does draw the customers to those ads. So if you're able to apply schema, and the benefit from that would be increased rich snippets, whether that be product thumbnails, star ratings, and things like that, that does help level out the playing field from a click standpoint. Because otherwise, paid media, the ads with the visuals will act like a tractor beam and just pull the customer to those ads. It's very compelling. Google does a substantial job of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about how to actually perform in this analysis. So within SEOClarity, we do have the capability to import your paid search data in the platform. Very importantly, when you do that, make sure that you do import the data from your paid search source of truth. So if you are using, say, Sky, DoubleClick, or other third-party bid management platform as your source of truth, make sure that that's imported into SEOClarity. Or because otherwise, if you just import, for say, from your Google Ads campaign, the numbers won't match, and it causes a lot of confusion. So consistency is really important on this.
Richard, how much data would you say you would need to bring in from a historical standpoint?
And I do like to start with at least 90 days worth of data, and then from there do a daily import from there. But looking at this analysis over time, 90 days is a pretty good time, because you're getting strong performance for both organic and paid search. And as we all know, organic does take a little bit of time to ramp up. So 90 days is a good window. And I also recommend doing this on a rolling 90 days too.
Okay. Is there any caveats to or concerns, I would assume, with seasonality, right? So around certain initiatives, the holidays and things like that, I'm sure we have to account for.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I mentioned a second ago about a daily import, that would help us analyze this data from any type of date range. So like things around like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, back to school campaigns and things like that. A lot of times those dates aren't going to perfectly align in a week or a month. So having that flexibility is really important, particularly during peak selling times. Okay. So here's an interesting example, and this is from where there is top 3 rankings where both channels are getting performance. You can see here that while it's a small amount of keywords a lot of times, the goal really is to make this section over here a lot fatter over time. So where we are finding the sweet spot, the other areas will see some deficiencies in performance. So the goal really is to figure out how do we get these areas that aren't performing as well into this kind of master bucket. So you can see here that the paid search click-through rate is really strong in this area. This is where we are, like I mentioned, having paid and natural ads juxtaposed. You can see also that your click-through rate is substantially high for paid search in here, almost double than that. But I'm sure we all could agree that a 17% click-through rate is phenomenal with organic search. You can see also what's very interesting here too is that your paid search quality score is very high in here. And then also your average CPC can be a lot of times a little bit lower in here. But here's some of the common things that we do see. A lot of things are very common with brand terms, and really good to understand what's your breakout of brand and non-brand in there. A lot of times paid search will drive more traffic in this area. A big part of this too is because paid search, well, it does give you that instant performance. It does cost a little bit more, but you can get a lot more coverage with paid search than you can with organic. Some of the key unlocks are what we want to call, action items really here. A lot of times you'll find that where there's certain deficiencies maybe across the board, maybe a lot of common instances that I see is that a lot of your targeted terms are really well defined in your paid search ads. And maybe some of the title tags that you have are a little more generic. So in those instances, you'll see the clicks gravitating towards the paid media, and you'll see the big difference between the two. So it's really important to, help make sure that the organic ads really stand on their own as well. So a lot of times you'll find things like, really strong ad copy in your paid ads. Taking that ad copy and testing that with your title tags and meta descriptions. Obviously, we talked about schema, making sure that you're maximizing your visual footprint. That can help really balance the click results from there. And by the way, this is a very common occurrence. We do these analyses.
Yeah.
This next one here, this is really where I find this very, very fascinating, is that when we are looking at the total performance of this, where we have our top 3 rankings, this is a vast majority of your paid and your organic clicks in here. And you can see also your quality score is quite a bit higher here too. So the benefit of that is that keywords that we do have in this prime positioning, they're going to perform substantially better. And I think a key driver of that is the landing page experience. Because if you're ranking well, more than likely you've applied good optimizations, both from a technical and a content perspective. What's also very interesting here too is the percentage of your paid search spend is occurring here. That happens a lot. It doesn't happen all the time. But what we are seeing is the percentage of clicks from both channels almost always happen in this top 3 ranking positions. And I've done a lot of these reports, and I see this outcome almost every single time.
I think it's interesting. That's a great example, Richard, of, as you mentioned, with having a really well built out landing page that performs well and benefits essentially both sides, right? SEO and SEM, because we know that Google looks at that when it builds in the quality score for that ad. So I think that's really beneficial, and to have the technical pieces in place that you utilize, like schema and things like that from SEO to help with that, is really important as well.
Absolutely. So as we look at our key takeaways here.
So analyzing your PPC and SEO data to maximize your visibility. We mentioned at the beginning that the biggest challenge is, as the SERPs become more complex and more challenging, it's harder and harder to not only get your visibility, but maintain your market share. So by analyzing both sets of data, that increases your opportunity and helps just build a better integrated strategy overall.
Absolutely. One thing I do want to mention, and I've talked about this a moment ago, is that measure your ROI for organic search by incremental KPI growth. A good way to do this is to segment the URLs that you are optimizing based on your action items from your campaign. Within SEOClarity, you can actually put all those URLs in a specific page tag, and you can report on that specific page tag. The ultimate reason behind that is because that way you're only taking credit for the work that you've actually done, and you're not necessarily taking credit for a site-wide performance. And also, like we mentioned also earlier, is that your best paid search quality score does occur where you have top 3 organic rankings. And this is really kind of the sweet spot that we really want to strive for when we are doing these incremental analyses also. So the bigger this top 3 ranking bucket gets, the better performance it will happen for both channels. This is what we have, everything that we have today. We really enjoy presenting our recommendations and a lot of the findings that we've done over time too. So now we'll turn this back over to Mary Kay.
Thanks, Richard. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I enjoyed this too.